I'm running the whole show with a pedal right next to my hi-hat pedal. So I trigger every next song, and everything is cued to that. The lights, the camera cues, the tracks we're playing, the click, everything. And when I go to the build, I'm thinking, well, you know what would be really cool is if I stand up and I just like do the build on the floor tom while I'm standing up, and I kind of psych up the crowd. And when I sit down, I hear 1, 2, and I know when we hit 4, the next song starts, lights will go off, tracks will play. I thankfully have video of the incident, and like afterwards when I watched it, literally hit the pedal, keep going. It's crazy how adrenaline affects your brain. It's wild.
Yeah. Welcome back to Drummers High. I'm going to let my next guest pronounce his name correctly, although I'm going to give the North American interpretation of it first. Cobus Potgieter. How close?
Like 8 out of 10 on the first name.
That's not bad.
Like a 2.5 on the last name.
Okay.
But it's really hard, so no pressure. It's actually Cobus Potgieter.
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 That's good.
Got it.
It's really hard. It contains 2 sounds that don't exist in English, so no pressure.
Are they Dutch?
It's Dutch, yeah.
Okay.
Potgieter actually means pot sculptor or potter, I guess.
No kidding.
Yeah, and Cobus is short for Cobus, which is like James. So I guess like you could
call
me James.
You Jimmy Potter. How that?
Jimmy Potter.
Okay.
I'll take it. Sounds like a character from Harry Potter, like Harry's younger brother.
He had a brother, yeah. So now we were trying to decide what was the best way of introducing you as either a YouTube or a video or a performance playing phenom star. What do you consider yourself, or which one do you like the best?
Gosh, that's a hard question. I think all of the above. What about like accidental professional drummer? Because I didn't plan any of this wonderful journey that I've been on. I just made videos in South Africa and uploaded them, and they were far more popular than I ever anticipated, and they kind of established this career which before that time never really existed, and just kind of trying to leverage this into bigger and better things, whether it be drumming or speaking or producing. So
Are you doing speaking as well?
Yeah, I've gotten really into more speaking.
Like what?
Just like I did this clinic tour in South Africa, or just 2 clinics. It wasn't really a tour, but I did 2 clinics, and the first part of the clinic was no playing, just like an hour of basically talking about utilizing social media to monetize a following.
Yeah.
Not necessarily a big following, just any following, which now is more possible than ever.
Yeah.
And just basically also, I don't know if the audience necessarily asked for this, but I kind of thrust it upon them. But just the psychology of being a healthy human and how to balance that with lots of online attention and even stuff like purpose and feeling inadequate sometimes, and because that's the kind of stuff that I've been working through. And so the response was amazing, being able to talk about those things so candidly to a group of drummers. So
you were talking to a group of drummers, not just
group of drummers. Yeah, group of drummers. I've done some speaking stuff previously for Google. I did this Google event once, but that was quite a while ago. But I'm definitely getting more comfortable about communicating more rather than just being quiet behind a drum set.
So one of the things that I like about drummers is that we don't have a fear of doing certain things.
Right.
And I think part of that is because what we do behind the kit and the energy and the confidence actually that we get from being able to perform influences other things that we do in our life. Did you find that knowing how well you play and that energy that you get from playing help to inform the way that you do your speaking?
No question. And that's such a awesome question to ask, because I think that's integral to my identity as a human right now. Because when I started playing when I was 16, I wasn't good at sports, sucked at sports. And sport in South Africa, or athletic ability, has the same social weight as it does in the States, where it's like it's definitely a social thing. And if you're not good at sports or you're not athletic, then you kind of miss out in a sense. And so I was 16, sucked at rugby, sucked at tennis, just not good at any of the sports. Got really into computers, and I was a quiet, introverted kid. I kept to myself mostly. And then I found this thing, drumming, and I found that I was quite talented at it, and it's loud.
Yeah.
It's incredibly loud. When you play, nobody else can have a conversation, so you get to really dominate the room. And I found such a sense of confidence in being able to, I think it's the volume and just the brashness of it, which was so different than my personality at the time. And I think it gave me an excuse to explore that part of myself a bit more and be like, well, maybe I'm not just the introvert all the time. Maybe I can have a conversation. You know?
In a creative way, too.
In a creative way, absolutely.
Because you're talking about loud and brash and energetic, but at the same time...
With purpose.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that's the point. Always with purpose, because I realized how much fun it is to play the drums. And no, definitely.
Yeah. And obviously, with the way you play, you're using the creative and the emotion, but you're also using the physicality. In a way, it was your exercise.
No question.
And was it
Absolutely.
Also mental exercise?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course. And everything from even mental exercise in terms of hearing a groove or a fill that you'd like to play, and then having to put in the time to be able to play it, and cultivating that sense of discipline and practice, which I struggled to apply academically, to be honest with you. Like, it was really hard for me to apply that academically because I didn't value the outcome of, like, academic outcome adequately. I was just like, I don't care about, like, getting 90% on the test. I can't see how that's of any long-term benefit. And I think the main reason why that was the case was because I was terribly immature at the time. Yeah. But with drumming, I definitely could understand the difference between like hearing a groove and a fill and then investing the time and learning it and then getting that payoff.
Right.
And how good that feels.
Yeah, almost, well, not instantaneously, but you yourself can actually hear and feel your progress through it.
And it motivates you to keep going. Like, what about 10 more minutes? 10 more minutes, and it just keeps sounding better and better. Yeah, I totally agree. I think that's why it's so important for kids especially to just like try musical instruments, because once it bites you,
I agree.
It's such a powerful thing. It's so motivating.
But for you, amazing. It started so late. You were 16 when it bit you.
Yeah, I was never introduced to musical instruments before then.
Not even at school?
No. In South Africa, we don't really have, like, music is not a big part of our curriculum.
Oh, that's frustrating.
It is quite frustrating, yeah. I was never really introduced to it. I think maybe once or twice. I think my nephew had a drum set when I was 10 or something, but I had no interest. And I was just intimidated by it. Yeah. I didn't want to, like, play. And then when I was 16, our very, very conservative church that I went to at the time, mad conservative, we went to, like, another church that was slightly less conservative, and they actually had a drum set. And at the end of this outreach thing we did, one of the guys were like, well, who wants to try and play? And he just played. And for some reason in my mind, I knew I could play that. I was just like, I see what he's doing. He's keeping time with the right hand, and then he's kind of forgetting about the right hand, and then he's just focusing on kick and snare and lining it up with the right hand. I feel like that's like, I could do that. And I sat down and I played, and everything changed.
Awesome.
Yeah. Such a cool day. I'll never forget it.
So that was your key moment.
That was it. Paradigm shift. Like, I could feel the needle move. Like, before playing and after playing, I was like, oh yeah, the course of my life just changed. So
now, the reason why this is called Drummer's High is when you're playing, and you're playing with a band, you're playing with yourself. You're playing with a band, you're playing alone.
Yeah.
But the energy that you're putting into what you're playing is coming back in such a way with the other players, from your kit, from your own playing, from the audience, that as you're going, suddenly you've found yourself in a different place.
Absolutely.
And you've been there.
Oh, yes.
All right.
Oh, that's why we do this.
Yeah, give me some examples. Tell me a little bit about, or the way you feel when you're there.
The two examples for me would be, and I love that I get to tell the story. The first example is when I was 16, in my bedroom.
The first year?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Wow.
No question. I think that's why I could keep going, is because I found that thing, and I was like, this is phenomenal. So 16 years old, in my parents' house, in my room, loud drum set in a quiet suburban neighborhood. I don't know how I got away with that. Headphones on, Tama, Imperial Star, rosewood, old kit. Like my whole room smelled like mahogany every time after I played. Such big sizes, huge sizes, mismatched kit, broken, cracked cymbals, Sabian HHX stickers on my school uniform.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I'll never forget that. I'll send you guys a photo of it at some point. And headphones on and playing along to pop punk. So Blink 182, MXPX, Phoenix TX, Good Charlotte. Oh gosh, anything I could get my hands on, any pop punk music, yeah. And one of them were Busted, this British band called Busted. They came out with an album that was quite big in South Africa, and so I played along to, I will never forget, it's one song, You Said No, by Busted. And I headphones on and just in it, and I feel like I'm on stage with the band, and I'm probably not even like playing the parts correctly because I've only been playing drums for 6 months. But there's something about this, it just feels like I'm in the music and I'm contributing.
Yep.
And not only am I contributing, but it's like inadmissible. Like it has to be there. Like I'm an integral part of this equation. And just vibing off of that energy. And then fast forward, how many? Like 12, 13 years later, being on stage with Busted at the O2 Arena.
No kidding.
Playing You Said No in front of 16, 18,000 people.
Yeah, it's a small arena.
Just looking around and kind of like remembering being the 16-year-old kid playing along with the 3 guys, James and Charlie and Matt in front of me. Like I'm playing, now I'm actually on stage and now I am the drummer in the band. Ooh. And that, I loved being able to juxtapose those two things because the feeling is of the same intensity. Like it wasn't better at the O2 Arena. It was different, but that same high that I felt as a 16-year-old playing along to music in my parents' house in my bedroom was of the same, it was the same unadulterated, beautiful, enjoyable feeling as it was on stage at the O2 Arena. And I think that's the beauty of this instrument is that it's not just waiting for you at the O2 Arena. Yeah. It's waiting for you behind your drum set in your parents' house on a boring Tuesday afternoon.
Which isn't boring anymore.
Which isn't boring anymore with the right music on your headphones.
So did you find, I mean, you got that feeling, the emotion. You love playing, the physicality of it, the emotion of it. Do you find that it informs more of your life, the curiosity, the energy, the don't tell me I can't do it type attitude? Does that other parts of your life, give me some examples of how that would affect that more of your life?
Definitely affects me, especially in terms of being able to express something. So I think, if with drumming, if I feel, a great big turning point for me was when I got really into Benny Graeber's playing, and I heard the depth of the feel and the groove that he has, and I realized I didn't have that. So even if I wanted to express that, I didn't really have the means to do so yet, but I could attain it.
Yep.
And that thing, that notion of being able to attain vocabulary so that I can express myself better, even being able to like, coming from South Africa and my first language was Afrikaans and now speaking in English and then moving to the States 8 years ago, similarly I can find ways to express myself in English that helps me express myself better, but not just so that I can express myself better, but so that I can connect with people better.
Right.
Yeah, because that's the point, right?
Exactly.
And I think that definitely started with drumming and like being able to just, it fosters this sense of like expression and community, and like if you feel something you can express it, you just have to like maybe put in the time to learn the vocabulary and practice it, and but then you can do that. So many other things too, like I think even problem solving, that's a big one where it's like, aside from even the playing, but setting up a drum set and wanting a certain setup and having to figure out like how do I get 2 up, 1 down, but the toms are offset to the left-hand side, but I can't afford a double tom stand. So just that thought process, I think it fosters this sense of like physical problem solving.
Right.
Which is why there's this fascinating overlap between engineering, computer science, in the drumming community. Like it seems to like attract a certain kind of skill set. And if it doesn't attract it, it fosters it.
Sure.
So even if you don't have it, you'll probably develop it. And I think that's also been applicable in so many other areas of my life as well.
So like ingenuity, being able to look at a problem and have a perspective on it that's a little bit broader than it might have been without it.
Absolutely, and trying to solve a problem with what you have at your disposal.
Yeah.
So there's a definite amount of things you have at your disposal. How can I use these things to solve this problem?
Sure.
Yeah. Which is a extremely valuable skill set. Yeah.
No doubt.
In all areas of life, for sure.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
Good, well put.
Thanks to drumming.
And you're creating your own musical voice.
Yeah.
You're listening to yourself. You're creating who you are behind the kit.
Yes.
And are you hearing that? How that informs the rest of the band when you're playing with a group? Are you hearing that your personality is coming out through them now?
Yeah, for sure. I think that's one of my favorite things is playing something I like. That's maybe a little bit out there, and seeing how the room responds, and whether the guys go, "Ooh, I like that," or it's in the right direction, but I don't think it's quite there, or excuse me, I don't like that at all. I think I really enjoy that back and forth. It really affects my playing for the better. But it is interesting how even the feedback would affect the way that I express myself. So it's definitely a malleable, moving thing. It's not like I walk into the room and I'm like, this is what I'm going to play.
Yeah.
You just play along with me. It's like, no, let's what is this collaboratively?
And you find that in all relationships in life then?
You have to.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you don't, then you're a terrible person.
Well, there is that.
It would be like me sitting here talking, doing a monologue for an hour instead of having a conversation. That would be horrible.
That would be easy for me. I just
Nobody would
put my feet up and have a cup of coffee.
We could do that if you want.
No. Actually, I'm enjoying myself. I don't want to do that.
Same. Yeah. No, I think it's very important.
So one of the cool things about being a drummer is that we have I won't say a fraternity, it's a family, because there are many different drummers, male, female, and all of them with their own ability to express themselves. They want to creatively. Yeah. But never have I seen really a drummer not be happy to see and talk with another drummer.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't seem to be the same with other instruments.
I totally agree.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think it's because we're so used to being in the back of the stage.
Well, that's a good reason as well.
Yeah, and we have the most difficult instrument to transport. There's like a lot of it costs a price to play the drums, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
If like it tangibly, financially, it costs a price. It's an expensive instrument. It's very loud. It's cumbersome to carry around. You're in the back of the stage. You get the drummer jokes. Yeah. So it costs a little bit of a price to do that, and I think it's absolutely worth it, unquestionably. That's why we do this. Like, I love that this is called Drummers High. That's the reason. But I think that kind of breeds this like collective, this sympathy for like you know what it's like. So if you're still here and you're still playing drums after, I almost want to say like if you can play drums for a year or two, you're in. Because it's like then you know exactly what it's like, or even sooner.
Shared pain.
Yes, exactly. And also shared purpose and passion. Like you know what that's like because you know what it costs to get that. And so I think it breeds this like sense of camaraderie for sure.
I think you're doing an excellent job coming up with the vocabulary from somebody who grew up with Afrikaners to now learning how to express yourself the way you want to in North American English.
Right.
Yeah, good job. Keep it up.
Thank you. Next step, American accent, but I'm not quite there yet.
Careful.
Yeah, I'll cling to the South African accent for now.
Yeah,
no, I appreciate the compliment. Thank you very much.
You did it.
Awesome.
You did it yourself. The attitude, the physicality, do you find that it changes like even your mental health and your sense of adventure, your curiosity, and it informs other parts of your life? Like, have you found yourself deciding that you're going to try something new and having no fear of it doing it because you know that you did that already?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think it's the same thing about like fostering a sense of like mental strength, or like mental stability, where when I was 16 years old, I definitely didn't have that yet.
Right.
Yeah.
And you were 16.
Right. And I think drumming definitely played a huge role in fostering that sense of confidence. Yeah, I think that's one of the most valuable things I experienced that I got from drumming was just a sense of confidence. And it's not about complexity or skill. If I think about playing a simple rock groove, and I would invite my friends in the neighborhood and I'd be so excited, or we'd play video games and they'd be like, play something for us. And I would play something on the drums, and just playing something simple, but playing it well, because I've practiced it, and seeing how that affected people, that's a wonderful feeling. Yeah. And I think that's probably what my peers felt with athletics, maybe with sport at some point in their lives, where they went, oh, I'm really good at rugby. I'm really good at this sport. I'm really good at football. I'm really good at baseball, whatever. But I never felt that until that point. So I found that with drumming. And I think that sense of confidence, even if it's something as simple as hitting things with sticks, you get a sense of confidence from it. And it makes it meaningful. And you carry that definitely into other things for sure.
When I'm talking with people who are not musicians and say, boy, I'd really like to play an instrument. So you know what? Why don't you try drums? And I'll tell you
Seriously?
why. Because it's like speaking English. Anybody can do it.
Yeah.
But to do it well,
absolutely,
that's a different story altogether.
So I love about drums.
Yeah.
Easiest instrument to begin with. You can play. I can get you playing a groove in a minute or two.
Yeah.
Regardless of who you are.
Yeah.
If you can count to 4, you can play the drums. Actually, you don't even have to be able to count to 4. If you can say 1.
Yeah.
If you can go ba 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 ba, you can play the drums. Exactly. We can work with that. Absolutely. It's the easiest instrument to start with. It's probably the most difficult instrument to absolutely master. Yeah.
Oh, quite the dexterity.
I love that. It's so dependent on touch and on the most minuscule of movements and the right place on the cymbal, like this infinite range of tonal expression. And even on the drum, it's no, there's not just a string or a note. And I don't mean to demean other instruments. I know intonation is very important in other instruments as well. I just feel with drumming, there's such a scope of expression that you can be so sensitive to. And getting to that takes decades.
And when you're playing, I mean, some people do. They look at their kit and they say it's my tool.
Yeah.
And I play it. But other people look at it and say, we're a partner in this.
Yeah.
And the energy that I'm putting in, you're giving back to me.
Yeah.
How do you look at the kit? Do you feel that it's your partner, that you're grooving together?
That's a really good question. I don't know if I see it necessarily as a partner. I definitely see it as something I build. It's like a machine that I build, and that I use this machine to do something. It facilitates a task.
Okay.
And the more time I spend building it, and the more diligent and committed I am to building it well, the better it serves me. And I think one of the most enjoyable experiences for me is changing my setup and going what do I...
You like that?
I relish that.
Oh, man.
Because it makes me play different stuff.
Sure.
And I think for the same reason that I like not knowing any of the questions you're going to ask me today. Because I don't know what I'm going to say. And it's almost like I'm hearing the answer to the question for the first time, just like you're hearing it.
Sure.
And I part of my personality relishes that. And I never knew that until I started playing the drums. And I changing my setup is one of the biggest things. That's why I'm not so... I know some guys are very committed to a setup, and then I can kind of see the partnership thing being an important part of the relationship. But for me, it's almost like the more it changes, the more inspired I am.
So in a way, your playing is more mental than it would be emotional?
Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So as you're playing, you actually are thinking about, this is what I want to do, this is how it's coming out, as compared to, say, like a muscle memory. It's more like an actual thought process.
Actually, I want to revise my answer here, because as you're verbalizing that, I'm realizing...
It's okay, we got a 3-second delay.
As you're verbalizing that, I'm realizing when I'm more mental, or when I'm more cerebral about it, my playing sounds more cerebral, which I'm not a big fan of. I've found that when I do that, and I explored that for a long time, when I do that, I don't like the way my playing sounds. I'm not saying it sounds bad. I think other people love that kind of methodical, systematic, very accurate sound. I think also the older I get, the less I like that, and the more I try and kind of distract myself from thinking about it too much. So the less I think about it, the more I like the way my playing sounds.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying the better it is. I'm saying the more I like it.
Sure.
There's a big distinction for me. Because some people, like I said, are all about being as methodical as possible.
Yep.
I'm not that guy. I think when I look at the instrument as a tool, it's facilitating that process. So it's not cerebral. It's just when it's set up, and especially when it's different, it occupies my brain in such a way that I don't get to overthink. So I don't get to like overanalyze. And I think I recently changed my setup actually like a week and a half ago, like a huge change.
I'm back to the 4-piece kit.
That I haven't really spoken about. Not that I have to speak about it publicly, but I think it's kind of interesting when people change their setup. It's like, why did you do that?
Because you like the challenge?
I love the challenge, and I play different stuff now. I changed my cymbals a little bit, went a little darker.
Are you also playing different rhythms, different styles, different techniques because of the way you set it up?
Absolutely.
So,
no question.
So do you set it up differently for, I want to be playing more of a samba type sound, or I'm going to be playing a little bit more heavy rock, or do you change it for that?
I don't think about it that way. I think the biggest thing for me is I love sitting down on other drummer setups and finding things that I maybe have missed. So the biggest one for me was 2011, Drum Channel did a show with Tony Royster Jr.
Yep.
Please, nobody should ever go and watch that show because
They should not?
They really should not. I cringe when I think about it. It was a wonderful experience, but I was young.
Okay.
Yeah,
Hey,
and
we
Tony,
can all be forgiven for our teenage indiscretions.
Tony is a legend, and I was just a gushing fanboy for like an hour. It is what it is. But after the show, I remember sitting down on his kit.
Yep.
This was literally after the show. Everybody at Drum Channel left. I was locking up, and there was nobody around. And the kit was still set up because they were striking it the next day. And I thought, what a unique opportunity to sit down on Tony Royster's kit without Tony. He's not around, and I can just play on his kit, and you'll never know. Mm-hmm. So sorry, Tony, but I jammed on your kit a lot for an extended period of time.
He had no idea.
He had no idea. It's okay. I'm okay with it. I think he'll forgive me. But I took so many things. I was like, the placement of the toms, they're higher than I usually would have them. They're tilted more than I usually would tilt them, but it just feels more ergonomic to me. The angle of the snare is a little bit flatter, so rim shots just feel a bit more comfortable. Yep. Hats are a bit lower, so I'm not straining my shoulder as much. Just like, I remember so many things just popping up and being like, I just feel more comfortable on his setup than I do on mine. Why is that? And so I implemented tons of those changes.
Okay.
And then similarly, so like if I think I sat, this was maybe like a month or two ago, I sat down on somebody's kit and everything was really dry and crisp. And the cymbals were quite dry, not super dry. I never got into the very dry kind of trend that's been going around for the past few years. Like, it's not that dry, but just a little bit drier, slightly thinner cymbals. And I just felt like I was playing. I enjoyed what it sounded like. It sounded funkier, more groovy. It was less straightforward. It was more dynamics.
Sure.
Yeah, it was just like. And I loved it, so I changed my setup a lot. Yeah.
And you just did a week ago?
Week and a half ago, yeah.
Okay. How are you feeling on it right now?
I love it.
You do? Okay.
I'm so excited to get back to my practice space and practice again. And that's also a difficult thing for me to foster, because like you don't always feel that way. Sometimes it's like, I don't know if I want to play. But like now that my setup's like something fresh, it's like really inspiring to play.
Yeah. Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, all right. Guess where we are?
Where we're
Fast 5 questions.
Oh, gosh.
Oh, yeah.
Hit me.
Well, that's okay. You have no idea how to answer these.
I don't.
No.
I don't know what I want to say.
Non-drumming.
Yeah.
Who are your top 3 heroes?
Oof. My dad.
Okay. Yeah.
Jim Carrey.
The comedian?
Yeah.
He is quite good.
And yeah, I can elaborate that in a broad sense, but I'm a big fan of Jim Carrey. He's inspired me a lot.
Disciplined and creative?
Absolutely.
Right.
And
fearless.
Fearless.
Yeah.
Relentlessly in pursuit of himself.
Yep.
Who am I really?
Yep.
Authentic. Like he's very authentic.
Yeah.
For better or worse. I just love that. Like.
Well, he's doing it with risk in everything he does.
Absolutely.
That makes it interesting.
And I love that.
Yeah.
And I aspire to that because I'm not exactly like that. So like I attain. That's something I look forward to. So my dad, Jim Carrey. I want to say. See, hero is a really strong word here. Somebody else I admire would be, this is so cheesy, and I didn't even grow up with him, but Mr. Rogers.
You know, I did, and I get that.
Yeah. There's just such like his kindness was loud. so his voice wasn't loud, but he was so kind.
Right.
That it was loud. Like you can't not hear his kindness.
Yeah.
And everybody speaks about his kindness, and I think that's such a beautiful thing about somebody. I would love it if people talk about me that way.
You know, I agree. And I actually, when I'm just watching the trailers for that movie, I start to well up a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. I grew up. There were two shows that I grew up with, and this was it.
Yeah.
Don't Bother Me During Batman. Don't bother me during Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood.
I love that. I love that. I didn't grow up with him in South Africa. I was only introduced to him like 8 years ago when I came to the States. Funnily enough, because people would say Don Lombardi, who you've met from Drum Channel, they would be like, he's a very sweet, gentle man, kind of like Mr. Rogers. And I was like, who's this Mr. Rogers? And so I started like just kind of checking this guy out, Mr. Rogers. And I was like, what a phenomenal human.
Yeah. Really was.
Yeah.
Great answers.
Thank you.
Okay. If you were not a drummer, what would be your second choice of profession?
See, I would have a vastly different answer to that question when I started playing at 16, 5 years ago, and now.
Give us all three if you want.
Okay, so when I was 16, so let's say 18, if I wasn't playing the drums, probably an engineer of some sort.
Really? So you like the logic of engineering?
Love it.
Yeah.
And I thought I liked the logic. I think what I really like is the creative problem solving. I just didn't know it at the point, and that's why I love drumming so much. It was just the creative problem solving. Then I got into video production, and utilizing that same skill set of like solving a creative problem through technical means. Oh, I love that. Like it really tickles me. It's one of my favorite things in the world. So I think like if all said and done, probably a engineer in the creative sense, so like a audio engineer, or even like a video producer or director. And lately I've gotten more into, like I said, it's like speaking and maybe even like performing a little bit. Like I don't know what that looks like yet, but just kind of, I don't know, that's very fun for me. But I think practically I probably would have been some kind of engineer in the creative sense.
Sure.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Strangest venue in which you ever played?
Wow.
And why?
Strangest venue would be, I don't know if this is not a funny or entertaining answer, but it was this 4 white walls, a room no bigger than this, with a lot of people in it, and some basement like 3 floors down. It was extremely dingy, musty, and it wasn't a venue. It was some like building, and it was some showcase, I think. And we played really loud, and all even I could hear was the drums. Nobody could have heard anything else. Yeah, I think that's probably, strangest venue is probably that. You had to be there though. It was horrible.
It's like playing in a cave.
In a literal cave, and 4 reflective surfaces, very close to a very loud drum set, and somebody who couldn't really play soft at the time. It was interesting.
You didn't have the dynamic at that point?
No, not at all. Everything, rim shots all day long.
Hey, that's how I play.
That's how I play now. But if it's in a room like that, I'll probably tone it down.
Yeah.
Or take out the roots, but like, not at the time. I think I caused some hearing damage that day, potentially.
Well, you have protected hearing now.
My hearing's fine.
Okay, good.
Thank goodness.
Yeah.
For other people, unfortunately.
So something that you did that you would never do again.
Drumming-wise.
Like I tell everybody else, don't worry about the statute of limitations, unless it's murder. But
something I did that I would never do again.
Yeah.
Oof.
Probably that gig, right?
No, that actually something I did that I never do again. During my drum solo, so when I did the Busted tour, this is a while ago, 2016. There was a drum solo in the middle of the set, which was used to give the guys time to transition from the B stage to the A stage, and so it'd be like a 3-minute drum solo, not super long. And it had this build-up section in the middle. And so when we did the O2 Arena, the second night, which is the biggest show of the tour, the manager said, you can really milk the solo. Just like go in. Like as long as you want, there's no time limit. Just like this is biggest show of the tour.
He's giving you carte blanche to play as long and as much as you want.
He's like, play to your heart's content.
Wow.
So in the middle of and keep in mind, I'm running the whole show with a pedal right next to my hi-hat pedal. So I trigger every next song, and everything is cued to that. The lights, the camera cues, the tracks we're playing, the click, everything.
Wow.
And it's just this one pedal. And all I can do is start and pause. But if I want to go back, I have to like actually finagle with the device. Yeah.
Right.
So keep that in mind. So now I'm playing the solo. And when I get to the build, I'm thinking, well, you know what would be really cool is if I stand up and I just like do the build on the floor tom while I'm standing up, and I kind of psych up the crowd. So I stand up and I start playing the build and I psych up the crowd, and people get into it and it feels really good. And I'm like, this is awesome. And I do the build, and when I sit down, I hear 1, 2, and I know when we hit 4, the next song starts, lights will go off, tracks will play. So when I sat down, I put my foot on the pedal instead of the hi-hat. So it's crazy how time slows down and stuff like that. Because in my mind, I was like, oh, I'm playing, I need to build, oh wait, the track is playing, I need to stop it. This is a big problem. I can see my tech rushing the stage. And so I'm going, right, but for me it feels like it's just happening in real time. So I'm like, okay, go and stop it. Okay, you stopped it. Oh, you're still in the middle of the solo, keep playing the solo. And then I go and I finish the whole solo, crash out, hold the cymbals. While I'm holding the cymbals and doing some other stuff, I rewind, go back to the previous track, and I start the next track. And in my mind, I totally messed up. In my mind, there was a big gap in the solo. Everybody can hear there was a huge problem. And I thankfully have video of the incident, and like afterwards when I watched it, literally hit the pedal, keep going. There was no, it's crazy how adrenaline affects your brain. It's wild.
Yeah.
And so, to answer your question, I probably wouldn't take such a risk in front of 18,000 people again on the biggest show of a tour when things could go so catastrophically wrong.
It worked out.
It did, thank goodness.
And do you think the audience really noticed?
They didn't notice. They didn't. So but it was, I don't think my heart has ever beaten that fast. That was very intense.
Well, there is that old adage, if you make a mistake, blow right through it.
Absolutely.
You're going to be the one that notices it.
That's it, yeah. And the cool thing is, like, it's a cool story to tell now. Like it is a fun,
now.
Now it's a fun story to tell. But back then I was like, oh, I almost just like ruined the show. It would have been so terrible.
Oh, man. And if you could, take the blue pill and be able to play any rhythm at an excellent ability, what type of genre, what type of rhythm would it be that this is what you want to learn?
It wouldn't be anything complex or technically impressive. It would be dependent entirely on feel, because I feel like that is the most difficult thing. So for me, pocket and feel is something that comes with decades of practice so that you can get unbelievably consistent. For me, that's pocket. When somebody's able to maintain a consistent, good feel for a whole song.
Yeah.
Because I think anybody can learn a certain amount of notes. Like you can learn the sticking. You can spend a lot of time on independence. Those are like you're forming neural pathways. But I feel like the dexterity required to play with a consistent feel and a certain feel is almost innate, but I don't think it's entirely innate, but I think it's definitely to some extent innate. But I also think it takes decades to build up that kind of feel. So if there was like a switch and I could flick it and just have that feel, it would be like Benny Greb's feel.
So do you think that's built up by endurance, or is it just being able to draw upon life experience?
All of the above. I think with my previous business partner, we used to talk about the flat edge of the curve. So in the beginning, you invest an hour of your time and you make 10% progress. Then the next hour you make 8% progress, the next 8%. So like it evens out. And after a while, you have to invest 10 hours to make 1% progress.
Right.
And I feel like lots of drummers, they feel like it's a plateau. And it's kind of maybe a plateau, but it is also not entirely a plateau. It just takes way more time to improve a little bit. And with some of these guys, I feel like you can hear the 5 decades of playing because they're on a place on the flat edge of the curve that takes you, never mind 10,000, 20,000 hours to get to. And it's not just sticking and technical proficiency and practice pad time. It's how many bar clubs you've played at, and how many gigs you've played, how many albums you've played on, how many musicians have told you, I don't like that groove, come up with something new, and how much that's informed their playing and their creativity. So I kind of, if you're giving me the out, I want to cash in on decades of really, really hard work and just have it in an instant. That would be awesome.
You know what? That's pretty good. Yeah, that's all right. Well, hey, Cobus, we have come to the end, but I wanted to say, man, great. I learned a lot about you today.
Awesome, I love that.
I had a good time doing it.
I'm glad, I love that. And so, you pronounce my name perfectly, so like...
yeah, well, I'm not going for the last name.
No, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, so what was it, James Potter?
That's it.
James
Potter, Harry's younger brother.
Thanks, man, I really appreciate it.
Yeah, so much fun. Thanks for having me. Yeah.
And thanks for coming to Drummers High.